Managing databases or any other type of stateful applications is hard, at least when compared to stateless apps. The more stateful applications we have, the harder it becomes. If managing one database, is challenging, managing tens or hundreds of them is a nightmare, especially if those are of different kinds of databases or applications. There could be a few Postgres databases, a number of MySQLs, a couple of Prometheuses, a dozen Redis instances, one OpenSearch, and so on and so forth. Now, let's add an additional complication to the story. Imagine that you would like to manage all those and quite a few others, and that you would like to do it through a graphical user interface. Wow, am I going crazy here? Didn't I say over and over and over and over again that I like everything as code and stored in Git type of approach? Didn't I say that many times? Well, I did say those things, and I do believe in them, but I also recognize that not everyone shares my preferences. Still, I would like to be able to manage my stuff as code stored in Git and synchronized through GitOps, so that should be a requirement as well. In other words, it would be great, no, amazing, if I could manage all my data stores either through click in a console or as code, and preferably for those to be managed by somebody else. I don't want to manage my own stuff. All in all, I want managed data stores both through a graphical user interface and through code stored in Git. So today we will explore ways to use managed open source data stores like PostgreSQL, MySQL, Redis, OpenSearch, Prometheus, and many others in an easy way. And we'll do that through Aiven, a SaaS solution that offers a graphical user interface, but also a Kubernetes operator and Terraform modules for those that prefer everything as code and stored in Git type of approach. By the way, do not go to Aiven directly. I have a special link in the description. I will explain later why it is special. It's not a scam, I promise. So there is a link, special link in the description. Now, let's see Aiven in action. Let's create the first Aiven service. Now, before you proceed, it might be important to say what Aiven is. The short version is that it offers managed services based on open source data stores. We can use it to manage Kafka, PostgreSQL, MySQL, OpenSearch, Cassandra, Redis, Grafana, and so on and so forth. Aiven takes care of provisioning, scaling, and managing all of those, and all we have to do is tell it what we want and what else. Yeah, those databases or data stores can be managed in any of the big three hyperscalers, and then some others as well. So I will start by creating a PostgreSQL database. I connected only my Google Cloud account to it, so that's the only one I can choose from. If you connected AWS, Azure, or DigitalOcean, or UpCloud, I think that those are currently supported. Anyways, you would see those as well. Further on, I can choose one of the zones in Google Cloud, select the plan and a few other options, type the name, and click the button, create service. That's the one. And all that is left now is to wait for a few minutes until PostgreSQL is running in your favorite hyperscaler. In my case, that would be Google Cloud. Even that might not be my favorite. I use all of them. Anyways, Google Cloud in my case, in your case, whatever you want. So let's fast forward until this is finished. And there we go. It's running. I can see all the relevant information, or simply click the Quick Connect button to get the PSQL command that I can use to connect to the database. And that's it. I'm connected, and I can confirm that the database is up and running by, for example, listing all databases in that server by executing \l. Now I can define additional features like establish integrations, define tags, enable protection from termination, upgrade the version, and so on and so forth. The interesting part is the ability to create and manage all sorts of integrations. Let's say that I would like to have Grafana connected to that PostgreSQL database so that I can create dashboards based on the data coming from the DB. I can do that by clicking the Manage Integrations button. Over there, I can see quite a few services I can integrate with. Now, that list is a bit misleading because not everything can be integrated with everything. Actually, that's wrong. Everything can be integrated with everything, but not everything makes sense. I would be happier, much happier, if the integrations screen would show only the integrations that make sense for a given service. In this case, PostgreSQL, instead of throwing everything, all of that at me. The rest could be hidden behind a button or something like that. Nevertheless, I can see that I can integrate with Grafana, so I'll choose to monitor data in Grafana and follow the instructions to create a new instance of Grafana and connect it to PostgreSQL. Now we can see that PostgreSQL is sending data to Grafana. That's a bit misleading though, because it's not yet sending anything. Grafana is not yet running, so nothing can be sent to it. And even when Grafana does start operating, it will be pulling data from PostgreSQL rather than PostgreSQL pushing it to Grafana. Now that's me being mean and complaining about wording on the console. So ignore me completely. What matters is that Grafana instance is being created, and we will fast forward for a few minutes until it is up and running. And there we go. Grafana is now up and running, and I can open it by clicking the service URI link. I can go back and forth between the Aiven console and Grafana to copy the user, paste it to Grafana, copy the password, paste it to Grafana, and log in. Now, if I open connections and inside it data sources, we can see that PostgreSQL is already there. I even configured Grafana to fetch data from PostgreSQL I created earlier. Now that over there is great. And I have to assume that Aiven also created a dashboard I can use to see metrics related to that PostgreSQL database. So let's open dashboards, and there's only the general group of dashboards with nothing inside it. That's disappointing. I love the idea of adding connections between services, but I would expect a bit more. I expected a dashboard specific to that database and maybe a generic one for all databases. But I got none of that. And that over there, in my opinion, is a lost opportunity. But actually, that is not the case. It is not a lost opportunity, but rather the reflection of how integrations are organized. If I chose an integration that makes more sense, like for example Prometheus, so that PostgreSQL metrics can be scraped and stored in Prometheus, I would be able to use Aiven to connect to Prometheus and Grafana to create dashboards related to my PostgreSQL database using metrics stored in Prometheus. What I'm trying to say is that integrations are great, but what you get from them can be just the connection or a connection and the dashboard and a few other things. And besides integrations, we can see metrics, logs, query statistics, current queries, users, databases, pools, and backups for PostgreSQL database. All the typical stuff that you would normally do with, in this case, PostgreSQL or any other database. Now, let's go back to integrations. It is great to be able to integrate one service with another, even if that integration is very rudimentary and limited to connections between them. However, as I already mentioned, there's a full list of services that does not exclude those that cannot be or shouldn't be or doesn't make sense to integrate them. So for example, if I choose OpenSearch, we can see that there are no compatible endpoints available. So message to Aiven, please do not show me services that cannot be integrated with the given service. It's confusing. Now, it is possible, quite possible and likely, that I can integrate PostgreSQL with OpenSearch, but not inside the trial account. And if that's the case, I would expect Aiven to tell me that. In any case, some integrations make more sense than others. And Aiven console is a bit confusing for newbies, which I believe are the target audience for Aiven. Now that I mentioned OpenSearch, let's create an instance of it. So create a new service, choose OpenSearch, select the zone and the plan, type the name, click the create service, and wait until the service is up and running. So let's fast forward a few minutes and voila, it's up and running. OpenSearch is running and it is managed by Aiven. I can open the dashboard, ignore that it is not working, refresh the page, copy and paste the username, do the same with the password and log in. And that's it. OpenSearch is up and running and I can use it for whatever I might need it for. Now, I would probably like to see metrics from OpenSearch in Grafana alongside PostgreSQL metrics, so let's integrate that one as well. So manage integrations, choose the monitor data in Grafana, select the existing Grafana instance and click the enable button. And that's it. That was truly easy. I can confirm that it was successful by going back to Grafana and opening connections followed by data sources. Now there's OpenSearch alongside PostgreSQL and I can build a dashboard, or I can import an existing dashboard because in some cases you have additional options there in integrations to add dashboards through Aiven itself. Now let's move away from integrations. I want to show you an annoying thing that made me waste my time and even open an issue with Aiven. And I'll go back to Aiven and log in to the console as if I'm coming the next day. Now, do you see something strange over there? Huh? Yes? Well, look at that. None of the services I created so far are there. They're gone. They're missing. Here's the thing. Aiven has multiple consoles. There's the one you get after logging in, but then there are separate consoles for each hyperscaler and you will not see links to any of those in the master console. You would need to know that you need to open, in this case, Aiven console specific to Google Cloud, and then you would see all the services created in Google Cloud. The same would apply to Azure and AWS. It's a bit silly and annoying until you figure out that the experience is split between different consoles and that nothing tells you what you have and where you have it until you open the right console. That was enough clicking for me. I would like to switch to Aiven Kubernetes operator that is much closer to how I prefer to operate stuff. But before I do that, let me delete all the services I created so far and get out of PSQL console by typing \q, and that's about it. The alternative way to manage Aiven services is through their Kubernetes operator or Terraform modules, but I'm a Kubernetes person, so I will choose to show you Kubernetes operator. So instead of clicking buttons, selecting options, and typing something in colorful screens, we can define what we want as Kubernetes manifests. Let's take a look at an example that will accomplish a similar result as the Postgres database we created earlier. Over here, I'm defining PostgreSQL resource with a name and spec. Inside the spec, I'm defining the same properties as those I defined through the console. Now, if this would be a real-world example, I would probably push that manifest to Git and let Argo CD or Flux synchronize it with the cluster. Now, I will not do that today mostly because I was too lazy to install Argo CD and Flux, but you should be doing that. So I will do what should not be done and execute kubectl apply manually, and I will feel ashamed for doing that. Now, creation of the PostgreSQL resource will not result in the database running in that cluster. Remember, Aiven is a SaaS solution that offers managed databases and other services related to data. So creation of that resource triggered operator to create PostgreSQL database in Google Cloud and manage it with Aiven. The operator enables us to manage managed resources. So while waiting for PostgreSQL to be up and running, let's take a look at the custom resource definition or CRD or CRDs that the operator created. We can see that there are a few. We can use the operator to manage projects, ClickHouse, Grafana, Kafka, MySQL, PostgreSQL, and quite a few others. Essentially, everything we can do through Aiven console, probably. Probably everything we can do through Aiven console, we can do through the operator as well. Now, let's see the status of the PostgreSQL resource by retrieving all PostgreSQL resources in the Aiven namespace. It's still rebuilding. I noticed the same in the console. What is rebuilding? Well, I chose to create a new database server, so the state should be creating or building. I don't understand why it would be rebuilding something that I'm creating for the first time. Anyways, my brain learned to translate rebuilding to creating, so I will auto-translate that word over there. We can also describe that resource and see the status and the events related to that resource. We can see that the status remains unknown. What does that mean? Can't Aiven tell us what's going on while it's rebuilding? Remember, rebuilding PostgreSQL. I don't know. If I open the console, I can see that the operator is a way to define managed resources through code, and that those same resources are a reflection of the information that can also be seen in the console. Now, let me go back to my terminal and watch the PostgreSQL resources in the Aiven namespace. I'm watching and watching and watching, and there we go. The database server is now running, and I can use it in the same way as I did with the one I created through the console. And that's it for the demo. Let me press Ctrl+C to stop watching the resources in my Kubernetes cluster and delete the PostgreSQL resource I created earlier. Now, let's talk about money. Aiven provides open source projects related to data as managed services. There is a free plan available for PostgreSQL, MySQL, Redis. I think that those are the three. And the free plan is free forever. On top of those, you can also get $300 worth of credits to spend during 30 days. Actually, please use the link in the description that will give you additional dollars in credits, and I get an extra $25 that I can use for future videos when I need to spin up a database. It's a win-win situation, so use the link in the description. I get $25, full transparency, and I will use it for the next video. Beyond the free tiers and credits, Aiven pricing is easy to predict, but hard to compare with the price of similar services when they exist in hyperscalers. It's hard to calculate how much something costs in Google Cloud, and almost impossible to do the same in AWS, since the price is based on much more than the amount of memory, CPU, and storage. There are hidden costs in all hyperscalers. Hence, I cannot say how much more expensive is or cheaper is to other similar services. Aiven claims 340% 3-year return of investment, 37% lower 3-year cost of operations, 78% reduction in staff time, etc., etc. I cannot confirm those numbers though, so I will take them with a grain of salt. I urge you to check their pricing yourself and do the calculation yourself. And now we can talk about pros and cons. Let's go. So here's the question. Is Aiven the best way to run a database? And the short answer is, it is not. There are many other ways to run databases, and Aiven is far from being the best. So, is it the easiest way to run a database? Well, it is easy, but not necessarily any easier than, for example, running managed PostgreSQL in Google Cloud. So, what is the value proposition of Aiven? The way I see it, Aiven could be very useful if you want to manage multiple data stores, especially if not all of those are available in the hyperscaler of choice. For example, Google Cloud does offer Kafka, PostgreSQL, MySQL, Elasticsearch through Elastic Cloud, and Redis in form of, I think it's called Cloud Memory Store or something like that for Redis API. However, it is missing Cassandra, Grafana, M3DB, ClickHouse, and Flink. If you need a combination of both those that Google Cloud does offer and those that they don't, and you would like to use managed services for all of those, you would need to combine Google managed services with services from other providers, and that could pose a ton of challenges. And by the way, everything I'm saying for Google Cloud equally applies to AWS and Azure, and especially even more for DigitalOcean and UpCloud. None of those offer all the services that Aiven does, and I can see a lot of benefit in using a single provider for all of them. That's where Aiven shines. It offers a single place for almost all databases and data-related services you might need. It does not give us all the bangs and whistles that you might want, but it does focus on simplicity and ease of use and integrations between services. With that out of the way, let's talk about the good and the bad and the ugly, everything. And we'll start with cons. Integrations are useful, but also a bit of a mess. Aiven should organize integrations in a way that only those that can be used are shown, or those that are used less or make less sense to use are hidden or behind the button or moved somewhere else. For example, when I click an integration with PostgreSQL, showing Grafana makes a lot of sense, but having OpenSearch doesn't, since it's not supported anyways, or at least not in the version of the account I have. The second thing is that support is always by email, I believe, on the best effort basis. That makes a lot of sense for low-tier plans, but I would expect a bit more for higher tiers. Live support would distinguish Aiven from other providers, especially hyperscalers. What's next? What else? Kubernetes operator is relatively basic and a bit finicky. If, for example, I specify a wrong plan in the resource definition, it throws an error in the events, but still claims that it started reconciliation. And then it claims that it created an instance. And that doesn't work. It's not created, right? If you make a mistake, it does not understand that you made a mistake and it thinks that you're creating. Anyways, operator is a good start, but a mess. Speaking of the operator, there is no easy to find documentation with CRD specs. Actually, later on I found out that it's available, but then it's sometimes the link is there, sometimes it's not. It's the link to the docs for the operator is broken or non-existent, doesn't work. Anyway, documentation is not good at all when operator is concerned. And finally, Aiven is not the most robust or feature-rich solution to run any single database, but that is okay. As I already mentioned, that is not the value proposition. Aiven hopefully does not try to be the best provider for specific database, but rather to be the provider for all of them, right? So if you want to have it all, you cannot be best at any given one of them, and that's okay. As for the pros, I already mentioned most of them, so here I'll focus only on a few. If you do use more than one data store and you don't want to, or you do not know how to manage them directly, all those data stores through your hyperscaler of choice, or if the given database is not available in your hyperscaler of choice, Aiven is a good solution, especially if running at scale or in multiple hyperscalers. The addition of the Kubernetes operator is a great way to enable everything as code and stored in Git type of approach. Even though it has its flaws, a lot, I think it's actually good. I welcome it. Many other SaaS providers are still trying to wrap their heads around Kubernetes and its importance for managed services. Another advantage is cloud independence. If I'm running my databases through Aiven, I could move them from one hyperscaler to another with a click of a button. If I do that, Aiven would create a second database in the new hyperscaler, make a backup, restore it, mirror transactions being made in one or the other, and so on and so forth. Now, that does not happen often, and I would not name migrations or independence as the top feature. But it's there, and it might be useful one day if you ever choose to move from one hyperscaler to another. Infrastructure as code is supported. We can use Aiven's Terraform provider, which is okay, it works okay, or the Kubernetes operator, which leaves a lot to be desired. Nevertheless, we are not forced to operate databases using Aiven's console, which is a good thing. But just as migrations, not necessarily the top feature, since from my perspective, Aiven is first and foremost geared towards users that prefer a graphical user interface, at least for now, at least initially. All in all, Aiven is a good solution for very, very specific type of users. If you're one of those, I would recommend giving it a try. Thank you for watching. See you in the next one. Cheers.